Arthur was born on the 17th of March 1893 in Hugglescote to Benjamin and Mary Ann Choyce. He was the youngest in a family of 6. Mary Ann Newberry and Benjamin Choyce married in July 1873. Benjamin was a wagon builder and Mary Ann a dressmaker. Arthur attended the Anglican National School, now the Village Community Centre, in Hugglescote. Arthur did well at school, obtaining Standard 7, and it's highly likely that it was here that he gleaned his love of literature and oration. In 1906, he successfully applied for a county scholarship, and thus his subsequent schooling was at the Market Bosworth Grammar School. Travelling daily by way of the railway, Arthur got his first taste of acting. After 4 years, he left in the summer of 1910, gaining a range of qualifications which led to employment as an elementary master. When my heart sees the hands of others hold the joy which many a year has known my yearning for, it seems that I should wind my woe to every passer-by and say, "Ah, see how gladness ever fleeth my way." But I am wiser grown, and when the story of my life is told, whatever lacks this comfort I shall know. I found it in my dreams. Hugglescote village lies about a mile from the centre of Coalville in Leicestershire. It's in an area that was known as the South Leicestershire Coalfield, which supported a plethora of villages and settlements closely allied to and supportive of the mining industry. Leicestershire's worst mining disaster occurred at the Whittick pit in 1889, where 35 miners lost their lives, some bodies remaining underground to this day. Coal was at the heart of Hugglescote prosperity, but the miners' strike of 1895 brought anxiety and losses of income. Arthur's father, Benjamin, appeared in the census of the time, his occupation being listed as a colliery wagon repairer. He passed away in 1914.
In the strange sea cities, I heard men sing how love still rules the wandering world. But I tossed my head and I smiled my smile, and I mockingly spoke of the hateful guile that lives in a sea of passion swirl, and binds two fools with a marriage ring. But when the strange and gilded ships came speeding out of a weary night, and I saw the eyes of the sailormen as they yearn for their sweethearts' loves again, I envied them their glorious light, and I longed myself for waiting lips in the strange sea cities. I changed my theme, for love came by with a smile divine, with a woman's eyes and a woman's hair, and I only saw that she was fair, and how the years had made her mine, fast bound to me in a destined dream.
Arthur had joined the University of Nottingham Training Corps in 1913 and served until July 1915. On the 8th of January 1916, he was appointed to the 28th Reserve Battalion Royal Fusiliers. At 6 feet tall and weighing 10 stones and meeting other requirements, he was declared fit for military service. His application for the Officer Cadet Unit was accepted. An assessment took place at Fermoy in Ireland. It was a tough training regime overseen by one Colonel Williams, who trained and led with an iron fist. The training course successfully completed, and he was commissioned to the Leicestershire Regiment with the rank of second lieutenant.
Let's drink to one more day upon this earth, my boys.
The regiment was formed in 1688 by Colonel Solomon Richards in London. It would run from 1688 to 1964, when it was finally disbanded and became part of the Royal Anglian Regiment. During this period, they were to achieve 73 battle honours, 37 of which would be in the First World War. The regiment were involved with the Jacobite rebellions in Scotland. They were involved in Canada with General Wolfe, Wolfe of the muffled rowlocks when he captured Quebec, which incidentally is the reason for their black ribbon. They adopted that after he died in honour of him. Our cap badge is directly related to service in India. The 2nd Battalion began in 1804 and did a 20-year period in India, after which they were granted the use of the Royal Tiger as the cap badge. If we look at the laurel which actually surrounds the shoulder epaulette, sort of containing the tiger, that goes back to 1777 with their involvement with the American War of Independence, and was actually granted to them by King George III. I have two grandfathers that actually served with the Leicestershire Regiment. My mother's father served with the 3rd Battalion in the Boer War, and my father's father served with the 2nd Battalion throughout the First World War.
I crawl in a spirit-haunted place made wild by many a screaming shell, and here and there a dead man's face lay like a livid trap to hell. For night had spread the jagged lands with covering veil of sable skies, yet war still clenched his crimson hands and hunted me with gleaming eyes. I crawled in a spirit-haunted place made wild by souls that moan and mourn, and death leered by with mangled face. Ah, God, I prayed for dawn. On January the 1st to January the 25th, 1917, Arthur's 9th Battalion of the Leicestershire was billeted at Hambert in France. Daily training was the order of the day. January the 28th, the battalion moved to Provence. Early in February, they moved to the trenches in the Noyelles sector. Under mortar and some heavy artillery fire, they relieved the 6th Battalion on the front line. 2 deaths and 15 wounded in the month. In April, they moved to Morganville to relieve the 7th Regiment. Spotter aircraft guided mortar fire, and the wounded and the dead increased and increased. Arthur accompanied Lieutenant Walker on a sortie along the trench. They came under attack and Arthur was wounded in the left upper arm and the right groin, a bullet penetrating his abdomen. Unable to move, he lay in the trench unaided for some 20 hours. The following night he crawled back across no man's land for some 600 yards to his own trenches. 3 days later he was sent from Boulogne to Dover and on to the 3rd British General Hospital in London. Declared unfit for duty, a week or so later, he He was transferred to the Military Convalescent Hospital in Blackpool. In March 1918, after a period of leave in Hugglescote, the Army quickly convened a medical board that concluded that Arthur should be ascribed the task of visiting America with a view to publicising the war effort. Or, as Lord Reading had so eloquently expressed, they needed to realise the war. Arthur sailed for America on HMS Carpathia, later torpedoed and sunk in July 18. He must have nervously hoped for acceptance and fair wind for his epic 9-month journey from coast to coast across the United States.
He travelled about 10,000 miles and he spoke to audiences of 14,000. I mean, he's an amazing guy, really, Newberry Choyce. This was part of the deal of people going, because they were supporting the sale of war bonds in America. And so Newberry Choyce spent, 6 months almost travelling America and meeting people, and he was very well liked. There's no doubt about it that he had a personality that he could warm to, people could warm to him very quickly.
Twilight goes, yet still shall memory stay refreshing with cool streams. Hide then thy faded rose. Nemersini shall guard it well for thee, whilst thou dost come from thy dead dreams back to the world's today. On the 30th of October 1918, the St. Louis newspaper The Star reported that Arthur had now recovered from influenza and pneumonia. He went to a private residence as the guest of a wealthy banker for a period of convalescence. Although still weak, he completed the book Songs While Out Wandering during this period. The Army General Staff were in a quandary regarding Arthur's status. For instance, what is the mechanism for dealing with a sick officer on duties in the United States? In November 1918, their conclusion was that a refund of expenses was appropriate and matters for payment for medical fees, etc. were agreed. The wrangling continued via the inevitable bureaucratic meanderings, and in early 1919 Arthur arrived back in Liverpool aboard RMS Coronia. He was subsequently relieved of his military duties in April 1919 and resigned his commission as from the 13th of November 1920, retaining his rank of lieutenant. Home again, but still haunted by the horrors and the injuries.
I sought for a word that should show the whole wide meaning of my love to him, and my soul was grieved that I could not find it. I said, the flowers will know, but I was not pure enough to read their message while the dawn was kissing them. I said, the birds can tell, but they built their nests and left me desolate still. The world is so small, and my little word must be most meaningful. I doubt if I shall find it under heaven. For it must say, heart, I've waited long for thee. Through weary ages I have lived, just for the glorious light that looks to me from out of thine eyes. And I have dreamed through life and lives.
I heard the sedges rustle as I stood beside the lake. I saw the stalklets bending and I feared to see them break, but they broke not, only rustled by the lake. And a song was in the sedges and a soul was in the song. I could hear it speaking to me while I wandered all along, and it ceased not, always singing this soul song. Did it tell of joys now ended? Did it speak of years now fled? Was it song of old romances? Was it dirge for holy dead? Why so strangely, singing always years now fled? Rather say it sang of gladness that the future years shall bring, and the pathos in the whisper of the song came from a string not yet tightened, for the trials years shall bring. Always singing this soul song, this soul song.
So
But all this time in Coalville, after Newberry Choyce had come back from America and whatever, he's prominent in society. You know, before he went in the army, he played, and when he was at school at Bosworth, he played rugby for Coalville Rugby Club, winger. I've got records of him scoring tries. So
the aching pain of his farewell, who now with me would never stand again and love the sky. For year on year that sky will spread with purple and with gold at quiet eventide. But all unheeding will he sleep among the fallen dead, silent and still and cold. And yet I think that through the years, when twilight steals across the land, his soul will see my bitter tears, and from the silent lands he'll creep. So shall I find him at my side, and I shall turn and touch his hand, as in that moment when he died. And once again, we too will understand.
On the hills, purple and far spreading, I follow lights that ever lead me on, to where the heather lures me to a bedding, with night thick coming, daylight drooping gone. The bliss to lie and slumber with the cover of forest shadows lurking low and deep, to dream of love, of loving and of lover, and waste a wealth of sighs in tranced sleep. And when the morn with singing lark is rising, to paint her skies with a yellow-orange glow, I wake to life, and languid love despising, across the alluring tinted hills I go. And ever stray, with whole of one day stealing, a dream piece where the music of the rills infuses in my joys and gladdened feeling that nature worship gives upon the hills.
Arthur was appointed to the headship of Snibston School in 1932. The future looked bright. He was now master of his own vessel. His health deteriorated in the mid-1930s, which included several hospitalisations. He consulted an eminent Harley Street specialist who was admitted to Guy's Hospital for 2 weeks. He returned home to resume his school responsibilities. The cruelest of fate lay just around the corner. His beloved mother, Mary Ann, passed away aged 83 years in January 1937. The relationship had been an exceptionally close one, and her passing had a particularly profound effect on Arthur. A few days after her death, he developed pneumonia and jaundice due to a tumour on his pancreas. He died on the 2nd of February 1937, barely just over a week after his mother's passing. His funeral took place on the 12th of February at Hugglescote Parish Church, and many locals lined the road on the journey to Hugglescote Cemetery, his final resting place. On hearing of Arthur's passing, Father Duggan, a friend and the first Roman Catholic priest in Coalville, was moved to write. His popularity was derived solely from his pleasing personality. He was popular without seeking popularity. Genial and versatile talker though he was, he knew when silence was golden. He never said an unkind word about anybody. Like most men of deep and solid culture, he was unaffected and unassuming.
Killing our Prince Ferdinand plunged the world to war. He'll be through by Christmas, Kitchery Spore. Here in 1917, Arthur Choyce and his command, fighting in the trenches to make a stand. Arthur Choyce, he chose words of peace and wisdom, the beauty and the nature of his world. He wrote them on the pages of his notebook, carried with him through the war. He wrote all his brothers, boys that he had led. Filth of the trenches, the stench of the dead, wounded and battered, still words he did write. Sent to America a cause to ignite. Arthur Choyce, he chose words of peace and wisdom, the beauty and the nature of his world. He wrote them on the pages of his notebook, carried him with him through the war. He's still young and some younger than me. He heard him cry, he saw him die, lived in misery. Arthur Choyce, he chose words of peace and wisdom, the beauty and the nature of this world. He wrote them on the pages of his notebook, carried him with him through the war. He came home to Hugglescote, back to teaching school. The noise, the boys, and the terrors of this war.